Guys, people are waiting. The podcast, people are waiting. It's been 2 weeks.
Have you been here for 2 weeks?
Yes.
Dude.
I haven't left. I've had everything set up. I've been sitting here for 2 weeks. I haven't showered. I stink.
Honestly, I noticed his hair got longer.
I noticed the smell, but I just didn't want to say anything because I thought it was me.
Shit,
People are waiting.
Okay.
Oh.
Well, you know what? Let's
go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you guys, man.
All right, guys. Dallas was just kidding. You know, we didn't really forget about you, but we did take a little bit of a break, only because we're kind of here with an announcement, as you guys can see from the title of this video. We've been thinking about restructuring this podcast. We were kind of getting bored for a while, talking about the same stuff over and over, saying pretty much echoing, the same shit everyone's saying all over YouTube with reviews on things and covering news. And we decided that we wanted to take more of give our unique perspective. We kind of have this rare chance to peel back the curtain a little bit on the comic book industry and kind of give you guys some horror stories and some insight from the other side of the comic book shop counter. So Josh and I and Dallas, guys, say hello.
Hi.
I really have been here for 2 weeks just waiting.
Dude, you need
I know
to shave.
I know.
You need to shave, but also
And pluck your
you need
eyebrow.
to take that angst out the door. Okay?
I'm trying.
You need to take that stank out the door.
Because you've been here for 2 weeks, but I don't see $1.
But anyways, guys, so what we're doing, we've been debating and deliberating behind closed doors or behind a closed internet, I guess. I don't know. But so we're going to restructure this podcast, and for the foreseeable future, what we want to do is we want to give you guys insight onto how things work as a retailer for comic books, and how the industry works, the way we have to go about things, the trends that we see in selling comic books, and the pitfalls that the comic industry seems to be in. Because, surprise, surprise, whether you guys know it or not, the comic book industry is slowly dying out. And publishers like DC and Marvel and Image, they're in a constant mad scramble to try and pull new readers in and to get readership up and sales up and things like that. And some of the tactics they take aren't always the most effective. And we just want to try and offer, what we want to do is we want to try and offer proposed solutions. We're going to identify some of the problems and propose solutions and how they can go about fixing this. Guys, is there anything you wanted to say as a precursor before we kind of get into some of the segments we might want to be talking about?
Just to say that we're looking at this as both you guys being a retailer and a consumer.
Mm-hmm.
So we're looking at this from both perspectives.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's kind of like we're telling you what's going on in between the panels.
All right, Gwen Poole.
Oh, God.
Yeah, we were kind of
taking
taking
as bad as I possibly could.
we were taking it seriously, and you just had
I know.
to.
The whole conversation before we started this, guys, was about, would this be jokey? You best bet I'm going to find a way to make this jokey.
I mean, at least he lasted 3 minutes.
Barely. Anyway, so one of the first things, and what we're going to do right now is this is just an announcement podcast. It's going to be kind of shorter than our usual stuff, but what we want to do is kind of tell you this kind of segments that we're going to be putting up here in the future and some of the topics we're looking to cover. So one of the first things we want to talk about is the comics inclination for quick fixes, for quick returns. The idea that if they can get something big going, they can see a spike in sales and they can get some quick cash flow back in and see a quick influx of cash, only to really, putter out and stabilize later the way they were going before that idea. You guys want to lend anything to that idea before we move on?
They need to broaden their scope, quit looking short-term, go long-term, is basically the gist of it.
That's a good way of putting it, yeah.
I plead the fifth.
Okay. The way Diamond, if you guys don't know, Diamond Comics Distribution is pretty much the only distribution company in the entire U.S. of A. that, as a retailer, you can get your weekly comic books from, and they don't really look out for their retailers. So we want to talk a little bit about how. Just how their business works, how they kind of rely on the retailers, and if the retailers go out of business, it's really no skin off their nose. But in the end, in the long run, it's something they should be worried about, and there should be a lot more communication between retailer and distributors. So
that one will also include some horror stories of retailers receiving packages from Diamond.
Yeah, I mean,
we got some. We talked to other comic book retailers. They got some that we know.
Yeah,
it's going to be fun.
And how sometimes an entire series that you usually order just doesn't come in like this week.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
We found out through one of our regulars that Punisher didn't come out this week. It wasn't on our inventory sheet, and obviously we're not going to go through every single series and see what the release date is. He just said, "Hey, yeah, Punisher is supposed to come out today," and we looked. They don't have any copies of the Punisher, the newest issue that was supposed to come out today. So. Another thing we'd like to talk about is issue ones being used as a gimmick. As it kind of feeds a little bit into their quick fixes for quick returns, but the way issue ones are used as gimmicks, one of the best examples we have of late is Dark Knight's Metal #1 had 47 different issue one covers, and how that was just a big problem, and it continues to be a problem. It's kind of being exacerbated by the fact that people keep buying issue ones. So, anything else you guys want to throw in?
Nope, good on that one.
One and done.
All right, the next one would be release dates. The way that comics are released monthly, twice a month, every 2 months, weekly, whatever. Just the pros and cons of those types of release dates.
What we see as a retailer, in the sense of what customers are, how that reacts to most customers and their sales.
And what is the most effective sales strategy?
Yeah.
Because the trends that we see. Things that are being released weekly, they sell out. Things that are being released monthly, you see puttering out. Ones that are released twice a month, you can kind of see some stabilization there. And then every 2 months, you lose a lot of readers.
Right, and then it'll also be the flip side as a consumer, how you forget the stories and have to go back and read them.
Right.
And
how
you get people coming in and they think that something came out when it really didn't.
Yeah. Okay. The way that now with the current booming of comic book movies, that's not even really current. It's about the past 15 years or so. Comic book movies are really taken off, and how they affect the comic book sales and the way the comic industry has decided to tie those movies into the comic books and be a reflection of the movies, and the plus and negatives to that strategy. The other one that I think a lot of people talk about, events, the crossover event titles that come out, things like Dark Knight's Metal or Doomsday Clock or Civil War or all those different types of events within the big two publishers. Kind of, again, pros and cons of both. Limited series, the idea of limited series and what they do for the comic industry, and how in the long run how they could be better utilized, and in the short run how they're actually hurting the comic book industry. Canceling series. This one might end up being kind of compounded with the idea of limited series and the pros and cons of that, but the way canceling series has just been so popular lately, so which could also probably lead into one of our other ones that we have, which is less titles. Just stop producing. And when we talk about this, we're talking about the big two publishers, Marvel and DC. They're the biggest ones. They're the biggest money makers in comics. So those are the ones we're going to be focusing on for the majority of these conversations. But having less titles, I think, would possibly be beneficial to the comic industry. You guys want to say anything? I feel like I'm talking a lot.
You like to hear your own voice. I'm okay with it. Whatever makes you happy.
You really can't be serious. God damn.
I really can.
You can. Right before we turned the mic on, you were very serious.
Now, we're not saying in that last status that they need to cut out all titles and we don't think titles are important.
No.
We're just saying you don't need 6 Batman titles. You can condense it to 1 or 2, start focusing great stories into those. So
Right.
we're not being all negative Nancy's for the whole thing. We're just providing pros and cons on each side.
Yeah, and the way you can oversaturate the market.
Right.
You're oversaturating it, and like before it was understandable because you're trying to, take each other out and also take out the independents and stuff, but it's getting to the point where you're actually taking out some of your good titles.
Right.
Well, not only that, but the way when you put out more titles, you have to hike up the price of books to cover what may or may not sell. Which another one that we would end up talking about is just overall the price of books. Now, a few of these segments probably are going to be bound together under one segment, and we'll let you guys know what we're talking about. But a lot of these things really feed each other. You really can't have one thing without the other, so we're going to try and separate them as best as possible. Another one that we would probably have a lot to talk about is just the effect that having one writer on multiple series can be a huge problem in the comic book industry. I know as a Bendis fan, me and Josh, and I think Dallas is turning himself into a Bendis fan slowly.
Getting there.
Yeah. How him being on 5 Marvel titles really did nobody any favors.
You can tell when a writer's being overworked. Lemire is a great reference of right now.
Yeah.
You can tell when a good writer is getting cut short on ideas because they're working on too much.
The next gimmick that we would be talking about would be killing or reviving heroes just for the sake of doing it, just to hype the book up, hype the return of this character, hype the death of this character, hoping that these key issues will one day be worth a lot of money, that people are going to come out in droves and buy them. So that's something we're definitely going to be talking about. Variant covers, I'm sorry, I kind of hate variant covers. I think do 1, 2 maybe at the most, but again, Dark Knight's Metal being this huge, flagrant foul is 47 different covers. I mean, come on.
And as also another thing too, as a retailer, variants are more annoying for some retailers. It's not saying that we don't enjoy the artist's contribution to the cover. It's just for retailers, they're very annoying.
Yeah,
they're very annoying to mess with.
And we can pull back the curtain on that one when we talk about the way Diamond, or even the publishers Marvel and DC themselves, the way they really screw over certain retailers because certain variants are not available to retailers unless they order a certain amount of comic books
or a certain percentage of sales.
Yeah, and that's just a way to. It's just not looking out for your retailers.
But understandable in some sense. But we'll go in that discussion on that.
Yeah, exactly. False advertisement on covers. This is something I think that Josh felt a little bit more strongly about, right?
Yeah. There's just a lot of covers where they either reuse the cover multiple times. Back in the day, covers used to, by looking at the cover, you got an idea of what was going to happen in that book.
The cover itself kind of told you all you needed to know about that book. It told
you're
you
going to pick up the Spider-Man
story.
book, and you know that Spider-Man book he is going to be fighting Vulture. Nowadays, it seems like they just kind of throw whatever character seems to be attention drawing to eyes to get them to pick it up.
The way
and
covers,
it's false advertisement a lot of times. That the character that might be on the cover actually isn't in the book. And also sometimes you can't really get a gist of what actually the book is going to be containing.
Yeah, the best way I can liken it to is covers used to be almost a trailer for the book in a sense. Now they're more so like an artistic depiction of a poster you would see for a movie.
Right. Which would work for a variant cover, which we can tie into, but the main cover, you kind of need to get a gist. It's an advertisement for your
first
book.
issue.
Yeah.
I can understand the first issue, but once you start getting a little further down, like Champions, it's a good example because Champions, every single cover is usually a profile picture of the team. You have no clue what's going on in that book.
Do you know what a profile picture is?
Not a profile picture, but you know what I mean. It's just like
it's just a group. Every Champions cover is a cover of the group.
Yeah, a group team picture.
It's a group pick.
Yeah, it's a group pick. Exactly. You have no clue what's going on or who they're fighting in those books.
Okay, and then some of the other things that we were going to talk about is kind of the way you could go about advertising and picking up new readers or getting consistent buyers, which would be advertise good jumping on points for new readers. Find a way to, in your solicitations that you put out every month, or sometimes it's more than once a month, find a way to get new readers interested in ongoing series that are still ongoing. If a series is at issue 21 right now, find a way to appeal to them and go, hey, this is issue 21. And this is a series you could jump onto, and here's what you might need to know. Here's something that we recommend that you read or try and track down. And that would kind of... Oh, no, that's... Yeah. Oh, and okay, so and the advertising would also be not advertising on just events, but also advertise ongoing series. It seems that the comic industry has gotten into this rhythm of advertising the big events, the next big thing in this publisher's publication. If you want consistent readership, you want consistent buyers, you've got to advertise your ongoing series, because once you start to get to numbers that are high, people are afraid to jump onto those books. Right. Find a way to get them onto those books now and interest them now that they want to later backtrack and read it. Right. Give them a way to go, okay, Batman is fighting Clayface here in Detective Comics, or he's teamed up with Clayface in Detective Comics. Now, it's obvious that something has happened up to the point of the book that I picked up. Find a way to advertise to those readers why they should go and start from the beginning, or read the series before, or why they should keep reading this series and, whatever you want to promise to come in the future, but just for the ongoing series, not your limited series 7-issue events.
Yeah, like DC is really bad with it because think about how many ad space they use to show Bendis is coming.
Yeah.
And then also you always see when Dark Knight was coming out, you always saw Dark Knight.
Or like right now,
but you
on
never
Batman
see.
Beyond, I saw 3 No Justice ads.
Oh,
Exactly,
yeah.
but you don't
It was a
see.
4-issue thing.
But
Yep.
you don't see an ad for Green Arrow. You don't see an ad for Hal Jordan and Green Lantern. So you don't see any of that stuff.
Yeah.
Right, even if it's something like pick up some of our other great titles,
Exactly.
Green Arrow, this, and maybe a small blurb like Oliver Queen is doing this currently, and that's all you have to say. That's enough for me to read and go, oh, he's fighting this character. I like this character. I might hop on.
Yeah. And the last 2 things were the price of books. We're going to discuss the price of books, what's driving them up, the detriment of digital comics and how those affect the price of books, and how you could lower the cost and get people buying more by lowering the cost. And the last thing is something that Marvel and DC both are trying to do, but they're not doing it very effectively, is create new characters and take the time to create those characters and flesh them out. Don't expect that you're going to put out a new character and within 2 or 3 issues you're going to see a boom in sales for that character. No, the audience needs time to acclimate to that character, to get to know them and have enough interest to keep wanting to read them. If you put them 6, 8 issues out and you don't see a huge return, just keep on pushing. If you've got the story, if you've got it in your mind that, hey, this is a great character and we can do something great with this character, see the series through. Don't go, you know what, this book isn't seeing the returns we were hoping for, so we should just cut our losses.
Right, and I think the other thing with that, and speaking specifically on the Dark Knight's Metal tie-ins / spin-offs, they introduced them, and I picked a few of them up and I've read through them. But I think if they were intertwined in the Dark Knight's Metal as you're reading through it, like not just the event, but I mean, if they're intertwined and maybe I pick up a Batman comic and Sideways appears, I might go, who the hell is Sideways? Who's this character? And I might look into it more. Use it as an advertisement jumping point, like the little blurbs they have, like this happened in, Batman number 43, have
Right.
Sideways first appeared in
The
Sideways
editor's
number
notes,
1.
yeah.
Have one of those to direct me and advertise me, and maybe in the back, like Sideways appearance, read these comics to catch up on what's
Or
going on.
that might be a bad example only because these characters did not show up in Metal at all.
Right.
They spun out of Metal.
That's what I'm saying.
But
Have them
be,
in Metal.
Yeah, be smarter about their integration.
Right.
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
Yeah, don't just show like a little tease at the end of every single DC book for this new character.
Yeah, like every Metal, everything that came out of Metal, it advertised all the 10 new series that were going to come out that sprang out of Metal.
It's like almost like as if they expect it to be like the old times where like you just like, we're going to make an Action Comics number 1. It's going to feature Superman. He's going to be the biggest hero of all time. Like it's not like that anymore. Like the best characters that you usually get are characters that are secondary characters that you don't really care if they make it or if they don't make it. But the thing is, it's just like we're just going to add this character in it. It contributes to the story, and if it picks up, it picks up. Just give it time.
Or you can do something like, I know I beat this drum all the time, but do something like the Young Avengers. I'm sorry, the Young Avengers is a critically acclaimed series. The first run, the Family Matters run, is a great series, and then they did the follow-up, which is the Children's Crusade, and then they're really never to be seen again. If you want new characters, and especially now, you want diverse characters, the Young Avengers, I still do not understand how that original cast is not back, because this is the prime time for them to be using those characters again. Utilize that, because Marvel wants to do the all-inclusive thing with race and gender and sexuality. You have all of that in the Young Avengers, and they're pre-established. They've been around the time since Avengers Disassembled. Why do they not have a book anymore?
Or their own solo books, at least.
Something.
You
So
give everybody. Squirrel Girl and Gwenpool had their own books.
yeah, and I don't.
And we don't even hear from the Patriot anymore. The last thing you heard is from Falcon, where they say that he
It wasn't
is
even
working
the
on charity.
It wasn't even
groups.
the Patriot though, the original one, right?
No. I'm saying like in that book, because there's a new Patriot. They mentioned in that book that because they just
Eli
kind of
is
like
off doing something.
he's like, oh he's doing something charitable up in Africa or something like that.
Yeah.
It's a cheap way out of it.
Yeah.
It is. So if you're gonna establish a new character, stick with that character. People aren't gonna love them right away. They're gonna need time to get to know them. Nobody picks up a book and goes, I instantly love that character from that one issue. You needed time to grow with that
Right.
character. Like you weren't a huge Daredevil fan, then you read Daredevil Reborn, but it took reading probably all of Daredevil
It
Reborn
did.
and going, wow, I really like Daredevil. Then you track down the volume 1 of Frank Miller's Daredevil, Klaus Janson run, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, yeah, it takes time. I didn't love Iron Man from the minute I read him.
See, going back to having recommendations in it, if I hadn't talked to you, like if I went to another shop, the retailer didn't talk to me or anything, I would have never picked up Daredevil. But the fact that there was no advertisement to make me go, in the Spider-Man comic or whatever Marvel comic I'm picking up, there was no advertisements for it. And you were like, hey, I think you might like this specific run is a good run to hop on. Just try it. You don't like it, you spent $15. You spent $15, but if you like it, it might be one of your favorite characters, and it turns out it became one of my favorite current characters.
Yeah. And actually, the one thing that we forgot to write down that Josh and I discussed yesterday.
I was about to say it.
Yeah,
I was like, man, you don't have that on that list.
No, I don't. But Dallas reminded me. One of the things you can do if you're somebody who wants to get into comic books, but you don't know where to start, talk to the person behind the counter at the retailer at your retailer. Go to your local comic shop and talk to that person that's working the register or whatever they're doing, just that work there, and ask them. Say, hey, these are the characters I like. These are the things that I feel like I'd be interested in reading. If that person is worth their salt, they will be able to give you recommendations on that character, even if it's just a few.
We do want to put a disclaimer out there, though, is we understand that there is some comic book shops that seem kind of intimidating, and that you got some retailers
I know
that
where
are
you're
assholes.
going with this.
But the thing is, though, is some of them actually, you got to think about it, guys. Their job is to sit behind a counter and sell comic books all day. You best bet they're reading them because there's nothing else better to do.
Well, I don't think that's the best representation of what we do, Josh, only because we've been very busy.
We have been very busy.
It's hard for us to keep up on it. It looks like Josh is just sitting there reading.
You stroll in at 7:45 when we're about to close, and you said you were going to be here at 7 o'clock. Asshole.
So we could probably do a segment or even include that discussion in another segment. But yeah, one thing we would definitely like to recommend to people who are especially new readers or somebody who's looking for something new to read, talk to the person behind the counter. I guarantee they've got something up their sleeve that you have not read that they can absolutely recommend with 100% faith that, look, this is a great run. I love this run. I think you're going to at least get some enjoyment out of it. And from there, you can do your research or you can come back and ask them for more. But
no, I mean, not even only limited to retailers. If someone's in the store and they pick up a character that looks interesting to you and you go, hey, have you been reading that? And they go, yeah, it's pretty good. You talk to them. You might buy an issue. Then you might go talk to the retailer about the issue, learn more.
Yeah. Converse within the comic book community.
I was about to say, we call it a community for a reason.
Yeah, if you talk to somebody in the comic book community, you'll find out new things. I mean, we learn new things every day about different series that we never even heard of.
Communication is key.
Communication is key.
Between not only Diamond and vendors, but also vendors and people buying.
And their patrons, and even amongst patrons themselves. I know people who have been in here who have talked to other people who were just here, and they're like, yeah, I was talking to this guy. He said this would be a good book to pick up. Kind of doing my job for me, but again, that's what you should be doing. As a comic book reader, you should be hungry. Maybe one thing we should talk about at some point, too, is the comic book reader versus the comic book collector.
It's a good debate.
Sometimes they can be very different things, and you should probably figure out which side of the fence you're going to fall on.
And it's not a bad thing to be in the middle on that fence, because I get it. Sometimes you want to collect key issues, but you also read. But if you're going to go one way or the other, I'd say be a reader or be a reader and a collector, not just a collector, because you're part of the problem in some of these situations when you do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll go more in that.
Yeah. But guys, I think that's about all we're going to have for you today. We wanted to keep this nice, sweet, and short. Be on the lookout. We're also restructuring our weekly poll episodes on how we're going to do that. We're going to try and condense it, give you something that's a little bit more comprehensive in a shorter amount of time. And we're also coming up with a rating system, if you will. So, guys, you have anything else you'd like to add?
I got a couple more things real fast.
What's up?
Okay, one, we've gotten a lot of people coming up to us and telling us that they really enjoy me and Jake arguing on the mic. So we also decided that we might start doing some more comic debates. Because people apparently really like hearing me and Jake just go off at each other, and
Apparently it's
and
fun.
get heated. Yeah. So on the days where we maybe don't feel like we've prepared fully for whatever segment we have lined up next, we might take a week break from that while we prepare more notes and more talking points, because we do want to make this informative for you guys and something that when you listen to it, you feel like you've come away with more knowledge and a different perspective. So on those weeks, what we might do is we might set up a debate. For instance, maybe Dallas will be our quote-unquote judge while Josh and I debate who was the better Green Lantern, for instance, Hal Jordan versus Kyle Rayner, or who's the better Green Goblin, Harry or Norman, or what was the better event, Infinite Crisis or Civil War, something like that. Something that's comic book based. It's not from the movies. It's something that you can only get the knowledge. You can get the knowledge from what we're debating through reading comic books
And also pretty
and argue.
opinionated.
Yeah, and argue.
It is,
Absolutely.
but
Yeah.
it's also something different, and it's not like a death battle scenario where it's like who's going to win, this character.
No,
this
it's not.
character,
It's
but
not a. Yeah.
I got
Who
our
would
first
win in a
argument.
fight?
I got our first argument.
What's that?
Who's better, Jason Aaron or Brian Michael Bendis?
Right now, Jason Aaron.
Fuck you.
Okay. Anything else you guys would like to add?
Nope, I think.
Thank you for
covered it.
reminding me about that, Josh. I know we talked about that.
You're welcome.
Thank you, sir.
You're very welcome.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're gonna appreciate it.
I definitely did.
Up your fucking ass.
He had to get one in.
Yeah,
he had
he
to get
did.
one.
I had to get
he
one
had to
fucking
get
in. I
one-
didn't get a
You
whole
had
lot
to
of
get
fucking.
one sex
we,
joke.
we can't have the NSFW on this without me saying fucking and talking about fucking you and your sweet.
Yeah,
evil.
you had to put in something homoerotic. I get it.
With a face like that, of course I'm going to.
All right, guys, I think that is all we have for you. Please be on the lookout next week. We are going to try and have something for you. Most likely it's going to be something about either the Diamond and their retailers or the like quick fixes and quick returns, something that's just a quick cash grab. Those are the two we're kind of debating on right now. Hopefully we'll have that up for you next Wednesday at our usual program time. But other than that, guys, we really appreciate you listening. We hope that the new direction this podcast is going to take is something that interests you, and if you like it, if you think it's something that could be informative to somebody else, share it with your friends, get this hyped up, and if you live around the area, always feel free to come into the shop and talk to us about comic books. Take care.